Forget what you think you know. Women have been fighting, leading, and rewriting the rules of military history long before they were ever officially recognized for it. Some of them risked everything. One even disguised herself as a man just to serve, and all of them redefined what it means to be a warrior. These trailblazers didn't break barriers, they obliterated them. Here are 7 legendary women who changed the face of modern military forever. Before we get into this list, I have some free resources to provide for veterans, active duty personnel, and reservists, from VA claims education to transition guides. And you can find them on the app we just launched. It's called the Simple Vet app. Go to the Play Store or App Store and download it, and then choose the resources you like. There's even a free community where I hold live trainings from VA claims, transition advice, benefits, finding a job, career workshops, and more. So first up, Private Cathay Williams, the first Black woman to serve in the Army, disguised as a man. At the time when the military refused to recognize women as soldiers, one defied all odds: Cathay Williams. Born in slavery near Jefferson City, Missouri, she didn't just seek freedom. She forged her own path into history by becoming the first known Black woman to serve in the United States Army. But there was a catch. She had to do it in secret. Determined to take control of her own destiny, Williams disguised herself as a man, enlisting under the name William Cathay. She knew the risks. Discovery meant immediate discharge or worse. Yet, she was willing to take the gamble. In an interview, she says, "The regiment I joined wore a Zouave uniform, and only 2 persons, a cousin and a particular friend, members of the regiment, knew that I was a woman." Williams later revealed, according to the Army archives, "They were partly the cause of my joining the Army. I wanted to make my own living and not be dependent on relations or friends." Williams was assigned to the 38th U.S. Infantry, a Buffalo Soldier regiment, where she endured the grueling life of a soldier, marching for miles, carrying heavy equipment, and training alongside men who never suspected the truth. She stood shoulder to shoulder with her fellow troops, proving that courage and resilience knew no gender. But her service came at a cost. After contracting smallpox, Williams was in and out of the military hospitals. Weakened by illness, her health declined, and medical evaluations eventually uncovered her secret. The Army had no choice but to discharge her immediately. Despite being removed from service, she had already cemented her place in history, defying both gender and racial barriers, in an era where the odds were overwhelmingly stacked against her. Though she received no military pension or recognition during her lifetime, Cathay Williams' legacy lives on as a testament to one of the most unbreakable spirits of women in the military. She was more than a soldier. She was a trailblazer who refused to let society dictate her fate. Next up is Private Opha May Johnson, the woman who shattered the Marine Corps' tradition. In a time when the idea of a woman wearing a Marine Corps uniform was unthinkable, one woman stepped forward and rewrote history. Her name? Opha May Johnson, the very first female Marine. It was 1918. World War I was raging, and for the first time in U.S. history, the Marine Corps opened its ranks, but only to women willing to fight battles with paperwork instead of rifles. With men being sent overseas, the Corps needed capable hands to fill administrative roles. Johnson, a skilled civil servant, seized the opportunity. She marched straight to the recruitment office, unknowingly standing in the front of a line that would change military history forever. Because she was the first in line that day, Opha May Johnson officially became the first woman to enlist in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. She was one over 300 women to join during World War I, proving that Marines weren't just warriors on the battlefield. They were also the backbone keeping the fight moving forward. The first female Marine service. Once enlisted, Johnson was assigned as a clerk at the Marine Corps headquarters, overseeing the records of the very women who followed in her footsteps. Though her battlefield was an office, her mission was no less important, ensuring the efficiency and organization of a military force stretched thin by war. She was a living challenge to the deeply ingrained belief that the Marine Corps was a man's world. Her contributions didn't end there. On July 11, 1919, she became a charter member of the Balliol Wood Post No. 1, the very first American Legion post for female Marine Corps reservists. Comprising of 90 women who had worked at Marine Corps headquarters, this group was a bold declaration. Women had served and they weren't going to be forgotten. So the aftermath, pushed out but never forgotten. Like so many women who stepped up during wartime, Opha May Johnson's service ended not because she wanted it to, but because the Marine Corps, like all military branches, began systematically removing women from its ranks after the war. She was honorably discharged, forced back into civilian life. But Johnson wasn't done serving her country. She transitioned into a civilian role at the War Department, continuing to support the military behind the scenes. Though history may have initially brushed past her name, her impact never faded. She wasn't just the first female Marine. She was the spark that ignited a movement. She proved that women could and should serve, setting the stage for future generations of female Marines who would fight for the right to stand among the few and the proud, a legacy that lives on. Today, Opha May Johnson is more than just a historical footnote. She's a legend. Her name is etched into Marine Corps history as the woman who forced open a door that had been bolted shut for generations. Because of her, thousands of women will go on to earn the title of Marine, not in clerical roles, but on the battlefield, in command, and in every corner of the Corps. She was the first, but never the last. Next up is Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, the codebreaker, who rewired the future. Some people change history. Grace Hopper rewrote it in code. Known as Amazing Grace, she was more than just a naval officer. She was a visionary, a revolutionary, and a force of nature who dragged the US military and the world into the computer age. Her legacy isn't just carved in the history books. It's embedded in the very technology we use today. A Navy destroyer, USS Hopper, DDG-70, bears her name, as does the Cray XE-6 Hopper supercomputer. And if you've ever used modern programming languages, you have her genius to thank. But how did she get there? Her story is one of relentless curiosity, unthinkable determination, and a mind too brilliant to be confirmed by the limitations of her time. From mathematics to the war room, born in 1906, Grace Brewster Murray Hopper's mind was built for puzzles, numbers, and breaking boundaries. She earned a PhD in mathematics from Yale University at a time when women in science were a rarity. But Grace wasn't just any woman. She was a trailblazer before she even set foot in the Navy. When World War II erupted, she left behind her professorship at Vassar College to serve her country, enlisting in the United States Naval Reserve in 1943. While many assumed women would be relegated to clerical work, Hopper had other plans. Assigned to the Bureau of Ordnance Computation Project, she quickly found herself at the edge of military technology. Her new task? Taming the world's first large-scale computer, the Mark I. When she first laid eyes on it, she was hooked. That was an impressive beast, she recalled later. She was 51 feet long, 8 feet high, and 5 feet deep. But rather than being intimidated, Hopper wanted to take it apart and understand it. And that's exactly what she did. She mastered the Mark I, Mark II, and Mark III computers, playing a critical role in programming them for military calculations. While repairing the Mark II, she discovered something unusual, a moth trapped in a relay. She tapped into the logbook and jokingly called it the first real computer bug. The term stuck, and today we still talk about debugging computers because of her. As impressive as Hopper's early work was, she wasn't done yet. In the 1950s, she worked on the UNIVAC-1, the first large-scale electronic computer, and created something groundbreaking, the first compiler. In simple terms, she invented the process that allowed computers to understand human-readable instructions. Before her, programming required feeding computers raw machine code, a tedious, error-prone process. Her compiler changed everything, paving the way for COB. Colonel Rudy Bradley, the angel in fatigues, who defied death in war. Some heroes fight with guns, others fight with unbreakable willpower, relentless compassion, and the sheer refusal to give up. Colonel Bradley was one of them. A survivor of 2 wars, a brutal prison camp, and near starvation, she didn't just serve. She saved lives in the face of unthinkable cruelty. A woman in a nurse's uniform, she is one of the most decorated women in U.S. military history, earning 34 medals and citations of bravery including 2 Legion of Merit medals, 2 Bronze Stars, and the prestigious Florence Nightingale Medal, the highest international honor awarded by the Red Cross. But medals can't tell her full story. To understand her legacy, you have to step into the hell she survived and the sacrifices she made for those who couldn't fight for themselves, captured, starved, and still saving lives. Born in West Virginia, Rudy Bradley joined the U.S. Army Nurse Corps in 1934, unknowingly stepping into a path that would test every ounce of her core. By 1941, she was stationed in the Philippines, where her life would take a dark turn. Where the Japanese invaded, Bradley and dozens of other military personnel were captured and thrown into a brutal prison camp. She was stripped of her rank, her freedom, and nearly her life, but never her purpose. Inside the Santo Tomas internment camp, where prisoners were reduced to half-cup rations of rice per meal, Bradley didn't just endure. She fought to keep others alive. With limited supplies and no proper medical equipment, she performed over 230 major surgeries and helped deliver 13 babies, often stealing food to keep children from starving. She hid scraps in her pockets, ignored her own hunger, and smuggled stolen supplies under her watchful eyes of armed guards. She says, "I saved part of my food for the children later in the day when they starved crying and being hungry," she later recalled. But her courage didn't stop at food. She became a skilled thief, stealing medical supplies to treat the sick and wounded. By the time American troops stormed the gates and liberated the camp on February 3, 1945, Bradley, once a strong 110 pounds, weighed about 84 pounds. But even as her body weakened, her spirit never did. Returning to war, because she wasn't done yet, most people would have left the battlefield behind after surviving 3 years as a prisoner of war. Not Colonel Bradley. Instead of retreating into a quiet life, she chose to serve again, this time in the Korean War. Now, as a seasoned combat nurse, Bradley was stationed near the front lines, evacuating thousands of soldiers under heavy enemy fire. On one mission, as her medical unit was surrounded by 100,000 Chinese soldiers, she refused to leave until every wounded soldier was safely evacuated. Only seconds after she jumped onto the last helicopter, an enemy shell destroyed the ground where she had just stood. For her fearlessness under fire, she earned 2 Bronze Stars, but even those didn't fully capture the impact she had. She dedicated 30 years to military service, ultimately becoming the 3rd woman in U.S. history to reach the rank of colonel. By the time Colonel Rudy Bradley passed away in 2002, she had done more than survive war. She had rewritten what it meant to be a warrior. She wasn't just a nurse. She wasn't just a soldier. She was a guardian, a fighter, and a survivor to those who had no one else. Today, she remains one of the most decorated female soldiers in history, a testament to the fact that heroism isn't about firepower. It's about sacrifice, resilience, and the unwavering will to stand against the darkness. She was and always will be the angel in fatigues. Next up is Commander Darlene Iskra, the woman who took the helm while Rudy Bradley defied death on the battlefield. Commander Darlene Iskra was breaking barriers on the open sea. In 1990, Iskra made history as the first woman to command a U.S. Navy ship, proving once and for all that the captain's chair was no longer reserved for men. But she didn't just take command. She took it in the middle of the war. She says, in quote, "I hadn't realized what a big deal this was until the world found out." Commander Iskra didn't set out to be a trailblazer, but when she arrived in Naples to take command of the USS Opportune, she was met with something unexpected. A stack of congratulatory letters from people she had never met. Suddenly, her promotion wasn't just about her. It was about every woman who had ever dreamed of breaking the brass ceiling. 3 weeks into her command, the Gulf War erupted, and the USS Opportune was ordered to the Suez Canal. The mission? Intervene if the canal was mined or blocked, one of the most critical waterways in the world. She and her crew picked up an explosive ordnance disposal team in La Maddalena, Sardinia, and headed straight into the tension of the war zone. The mines never came, but the danger never left. They stayed in the Mediterranean for the entire duration of the war. Ready for action at the moment's notice, after 21 years of service, Iskra retired from the Navy in 2000. But she wasn't done breaking barriers. She went on to earn her PhD in sociology from the University of Maryland, using her expertise to document and advocate for women in the military. Her books, Breaking Through the Brass Ceiling and Women in the United States Armed Forces, A Guide to the Issues, cemented her as a leading voice in military gender equality. A legacy of firsts, from taking command of a Navy ship to navigating the dangers of Desert Storm, Commander Darlene Iskra didn't just break barriers. She made sure they never came back. Because of her, women now serve as captains, admirals, and beyond. Because of her, no woman in the Navy will ever have to wonder if she belongs in command. She proved that the sea, like the battlefield, belongs to those brave enough to take the helm. Lieutenant Colonel Martha McSally, the pilot who fought battles in the sky and on the ground. Some people break barriers. Lieutenant Colonel Martha McSally obliterated them at Mach speed. The daughter of a fighter, she was destined to become one herself. The first American woman to fly in combat, the first woman to command the U.S. Air Force fighter squadron, and the warrior who took on the Pentagon and won. McSally didn't just serve, she'd redefined what service meant for women in the military. Her story is one of grit, defiance, and a refusal to accept limits, whether they were written in military policy or ingrained in a culture that tried to hold her back. Becoming a combat pilot, a mission that almost didn't happen. Martha McSally wasn't supposed to fly in combat. At least, that's what the military policy said at the time. When she joined the Air Force Academy in 1984, women weren't allowed to be fighter pilots. The combat exclusion law was still in place, meaning female aviators could fly support roles, but never in direct combat. But McSally wasn't the type to take no for an answer. She graduated in the top 5% of her Air Force Academy class, clawed her way into pilot training, and proved she was too skilled to be ignored. Then, in 1991, the role changed. The ban on women flying in combat was lifted. McSally was ready. She trained to fly the Fairchild Republic A-10 Thunderbolt II, better known as the Warthog. The legendary close air support aircraft was designed for low-altitude, high-risk precision strikes. It required nerves of steel, lightning-fast reflexes, and an ability to fly into chaos and make it back out. She hit all three. During Operation Southern Watch, McSally soared over Iraq and Kuwait, enforcing no-fly zones and executing missions with surgical precision. She wasn't just flying combat missions. She was proving that women could do what the military had long believed they couldn't. And then she took on an enemy no one expected, the Pentagon itself. The fight against the Pentagon's dress code. In 2001, McSally was stationed in Saudi Arabia, a country where women were required to wear an abaya, a head-to-toe black robe, as a sign of submission. The US military shockingly enforced the same rule on its female personnel. McSally has spent her career fighting for equality in the skies, and she wasn't about to accept subjugation on the ground. Refusing to comply, she took her battle straight to the DoD, suing Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. Her argument? The military's dress code violated her constitutional rights to equal protection, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion. The lawsuit was explosive. The Pentagon pushed back hard, but McSally pushed harder. In 2002, she won. The DoD rescinded the policy, freeing female service members from the forced dress code. She had fought a war in the air and a war against discrimination, and won both. By 2004, McSally had already etched her name in military history, but she wasn't finished. She was selected to command the 354th Fighter Squadron at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona, becoming the first woman in U.S. history to lead a U.S. Air Force fighter squadron. Under her leadership, the squadron trained for combat, executed precision strike missions, and continued proving that women belong, not just in the cockpit, but in command. After 26 years in uniform, she retired, but her service to her country was far from over. For McSally, service wasn't about wearing a uniform. It was about defending the Constitution, whether in the cockpit of an A-12 or on the floor of the U.S. Congress. In 2015, she ran for office and won a seat in the House of Reps, later serving as a U.S. Senator from Arizona. To her, politics wasn't about power. It was about continuing her mission. She says, "I served my country in uniform for 26 years. She said, "I personally consider this just a continuation of my service to my country." Lieutenant Colonel Martha McSally broke barriers, shattered stereotypes, and proved that courage isn't just defined by gender, it's defined by action. She flew into combat when the world told her she couldn't. She challenged the Pentagon when no one else would. She commanded a fighter squadron when history said it wasn't possible. And she never backed down from a fight. Her legacy? It soars at 30,000 feet and echoes in every woman who dares to step into the cockpit, the battlefield, or the halls of power. Because of Martha McSally, the next generation of female warriors won't have to ask for permission. They'll just take flight. Sergeant Leigh Ann Hester, the woman who fought her way into history. Some people are handed a place in history. Sergeant Leigh Ann Hester took hers with a rifle, a grenade launcher, and unshakable courage. In the war zone where danger lurked behind every corner, she became the first woman since World War II to be awarded the Silver Star for valor in combat. But this wasn't just about breaking barriers. This was about raw, relentless warrior instinct. Hester didn't just fight, she led the charge. On March 20, 2005, a routine mission in Iraq turned into a battlefield baptism by fire. Hester and her unit, the 617th Military Police Company, a National Guard unit out of Richmond, Kentucky, were shadowing a supply convoy when all hell broke loose. Insurgents launched a coordinated ambush, raining down RPGs, AK-47 fire, and explosives on the convoy. The road erupted in chaos. Most soldiers in that moment would go on the defensive, but not Sergeant Hester. She had her squad leader, Staff Sergeant Timothy Nee, made a split-second decision that would define the battle. Instead of retreating, they moved into the side of the road, outflanked the insurgents, and cut off their escape. Then, Hester did something no woman in modern U.S. history had ever done. She led a team straight through the kill zone. Charging into the fire, most people would hesitate. Hester ran forward. Under relentless enemy fire, she assaulted a trench line, unloading grenades and M203 grenade launcher rounds with devastating precision. She and 9 then cleared 2 enemy trenches, up close, personal, and deadly. At that moment, it was kill or be killed. With her M4, Hester took down 3 insurgents herself. By the time the dust settled, 27 enemy fighters lay dead, 6 more were wounded, and 1 was captured. The convoy was saved. Her team had survived, and history had been made. And shrugging it off, Hester never set out to be a trailblazer. When she was told she would never receive the Silver Star, the military's 3rd highest honor for valor, she was stunned. She says, "I'm honored to even be considered, much less awarded the medal," she told the Army Times. But what mattered to her wasn't the history books. It wasn't being the first female soldier since World War II to receive the medal. She says, "It really doesn't have anything to do with being a female," she said. "It's about the duties I performed that day as a soldier." For Hester, it was simple. She had a job to do. She didn't have time to be scared. She says, your training kicks in and the soldier kicks in. It's your life or theirs. And you have a job to do, protecting yourself and your fellow comrades. And that's exactly what she did. She had enlisted in the National Guard in April 2001, never expecting to become a household name. She just wanted to serve. But on that day in Iraq, she did more than just serve. She led, she fought, and she won. Sergeant Hester didn't just break barriers, she obliterated them. Because of her, future generations of female warriors won't be seen as exceptions to the rule. They'll be the rule. She didn't ask for history to remember her, but she had no choice.